Hey Dragon Slayers! Today's video is about asking the question, is fiber important to reversing insulin resistance? So, a low fat, low calorie diet is almost always going to be high in dietary fiber. That is, if it's done right, by focusing on real foods rather than processed diet meals. Dietary fiber has a special place in the hollowed halls of the nutritional pantheon. It is almost universally embraced as being essential to a modern healthy diet. Despite the many reported benefits, the role of fiber in insulin sensitivity is open to interpretation. There is a general indication that fiber improves it. Multiple epidemiological studies, that is, studies that get data from questionnaires, find a correlation between fiber consumption and improved insulin sensitivity. Results from clinical trials are mixed. Interpreting the results requires some scrutiny in the context of insulin resistance. Because clinical trials, not questionnaires, help establish cause and effect, we'll only focus on those. Some studies have found that when study subjects eat a high fiber meal, glucose and insulin levels are lower than those subjects who eat a low fiber meal. But again, these findings vary based on the subject population. For example, men with higher fasting insulin levels, i.e., insulin resistant men, enjoyed a lower post meal insulin spike when consuming a high fiber meal versus a low fiber meal. But there was no evidence in insulin levels in the men with normal fasting insulin, aka men who were insulin sensitive. When explored over a long term, the results get even more confusing. While increasing dietary fiber over a period of several weeks was shown to improve insulin sensitivity in a group of non obese people with diabetes, consuming more dietary fiber had no effect on insulin resistance in obese people with diabetes. So, although these studies suggest that insulin sensitizing effects of fiber in insulin resistant subjects and not in insulin sensitive subjects, and provide evidence of a possible limit to those benefits. An important weakness in these studies is the type of fiber that's used. Virtually every dietary fiber trial uses fiber supplements in the form of guar gum, which is not a fiber that comes with most carbohydrates in nature. While guar gum is available in health food stores, it is not a part of a normal diet, which suggests the results of a high fiber diet in the form of higher guar gum intake should not be extrapolated to assume that other sources of fiber like vegetables and legumes will have the same result. Nevertheless, placing insulin resistant individuals on a high fiber diet around 50 grams a day, where the fiber is primarily from fruits, vegetables, legumes, and select grains, significantly improved insulin sensitivity after 6 weeks. An unfortunate aspect of almost every study exploring the role of dietary fiber in insulin resistance is that the study increases fiber at the expense of fat. The high fiber study diets are also low fat diets. As we will see shortly, dietary fat elicits no effect on blood insulin. So the relative absence of fat in the high fiber diets leaves the unanswered question of whether or not the diet high in fat and high in fiber is more effective than a diet high in fiber versus one also low in fat. An alternative perspective is that dietary fiber is increasingly more essential as dietary carbohydrates increase, particularly processed. Um, Two published reports touch on this conflict, albeit without actually addressing insulin resistance. The focus on only the glucose response. One study gave participants three distinct types of bread. One of them was low fiber, low fat. The second one was high fiber, low fat. And the third one was high fiber, high fat. The low fiber, low fat bread resulted in far greater blood glucose response than the other two and was the least satisfying, suggesting that perhaps the person would be inclined to eat more, whereas the blood glucose response was similar between the two high fiber breads, regardless of their fat content, and the high fiber, high fat bread was far more satisfying. Unfortunately, the study did not assess insulin levels, which prevents any conclusions touching on insulin resistance directly. A second study fed subjects four types of pasta meals: normal pasta, pasta with psyllium husk fiber, pasta with fat, oil, and pasta with psyllium husk and fat. Psyllium husk alone did nothing to mitigate the insulin or glucose effects of the carbohydrate rich pasta, while adding fat lowered them somewhat. Adding both psyllium husk and fat lowered them the most and led to the greatest satiety. In the end, it's very likely that fiber improves insulin sensitivity in most people by simply replacing sugars and starches that elicit an insulin response. Importantly, one should scrutinize the source of fiber. It is dumbfounding but true that most fiber supplements have sugar as one of their main ingredients. Depending on the degree to which the fiber dissolves in water, dietary fiber can be defined as soluble, meaning that it mixes well with water, or insoluble, meaning that it does not mix well with water. Beyond their solubility, dietary fiber can be defined by its ability to benefit glucose and insulin control. Here, soluble fiber wins, whereas insoluble fiber, derived mainly from grains and bran, provides bulk for the stool. It's the soluble fiber, generally from fruits and certain vegetables, including psyllium husk in the pasta experiments, or specific supplements that provides the best glucose and insulin benefits. So that's what I've got for you guys today. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it really helps the channel out. And remember, guys, that together, you and I will slay the dreaded diabetes dragon.